Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started on today's topic, step-by-step guide or introduction, let's say, to business development in the government contracting space. And even for somebody like me, being in business development for a long time, having run my own businesses, this is still good information. So whether you're a senior and you've been doing this a while or you're new to it, I'm going to touch on everybody today. But I want to start off with just a quick thank you tip. For those of you showing up early and on time, and in particular, Devin, I appreciate you getting in here early. I don't need people getting in here like hours early, but being here early is awesome. It really helps me as a trainer and as a speaker, but also helps LinkedIn let other people know. And so I asked Devin, I said, hey, what kind of tip can I help you? And there's two things you mentioned. DOJ, I'm going to table. Both of them I'm going to table, but I'll tell you why. DOJ, I'll table because you want to know more information than I can provide, and that's perfect. I love it when I can target the information I'm sharing with somebody. So let me do more research and I'll keep that right in my mind, Devin. And then the second one is he asked about the difference between PCS and NAICS codes and when to use them and how do you best use them. And one of the things that I would start with, I can come back later and talk about it and show it a little bit in detail, or in fact, I might pull in a data guest who really likes diving into the data. But one of the things that I've discovered is I hate PCS and NAICS codes because the data entered into FPDS or any of these other tools are only as good as the government agencies that are using it. And you can go watch a video I did about the Navy, who theoretically is, or arguably is, the agency I love the best. They were crazy. They were awarding contracts on NAICS codes that were expired because no one changed the data. And other times where NAICS codes were just nowhere near what they should be. It was software development work, but the NAICS code was something weird. And so that's why I don't like those. I really like keywords in particular because I can dive into the PWS or I can dive into the description, the scope, and really try to get to the intent of the offering. But Devin, I'm going to come back and grab those. But he's also leading me into today's tip, which is as government contractors, right, we need to learn our craft and we need to learn we develop both the skills, which is part of what I'm going to teach you today. And then there's many tools. And the idea is we often don't see ourselves when we start a business. In particular, I'm talking to business owners. We start a business, we're subject matter experts, or we like doing this thing. We say, hey, I'm going to start a business. And we go through some of the process. And we're not necessarily developing the skills on the tools that could help us. An example would be Google. Right, Google is the best search engine out there, right? And you use any actual tool for Google, like Bing or whatever. But these search engines are the best tools out there for doing your research and figuring things out. Well, have you taken the time to learn how to properly do really sophisticated searches? An example is if you want to find information that's coming out of the Navy, like I said, you can search stuff on Google or Bing or whatever, right? And you can put in a parameter. It just means putting these words in where you say site : Navy.mil, right? And when you put that in, and maybe somebody can type that in the chat for me, site : Navy.mil. When you do that, the only results that come back are from a Navy site. And that's an example of learning the tools that you have and really developing the craft. And your craft is government contracting as you're building that business. And business development, which we're talking about today, is going to go in that same direction. So that was a tip just as a thank you to those who are showing up early and on time. I appreciate that. And good morning to everybody else who's saying it in the chat. I'm going to switch over to my topics, but I really appreciate the good mornings and the hellos in there. So hi back. Okay, let's talk about step-by-step guide to business development. This is going to be a high-level overview. In fact, it's going to piggyback on top of other training that I'll be doing this week. But business development, it's vital to the success, your success as a government contractor, right? But too many small businesses don't know how to do business development, and therefore we don't do business development. This is unfortunate since I really believe that you can be a great business developer if you just take the time to gain the knowledge, develop the skills, and then follow a proven process. And I'll talk about all three of these today, and I'll show you some graphics that'll walk you through those processes, et cetera. But that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. The information and training, by the way, that I'm providing today is it's being pulled out of my BD Masterclass. It's the most thorough online course about federal business development. And I don't sell that separately. I use it with my customers on other things. But I want to share the information that's in there because I built this super course. And it's very detailed, step by step. I can take a brand new person into government contracting and help them become a very proficient professional grade business developer in the federal market. And I just wanted to pull that information out and share it in these live trainings. And so when I teach business development to my customers, this is exactly what I teach them, right? This process I'm going to teach you. And each day this week, April 17th through the 21st, 2023, each day this week, I'm going to share a different module or a different component of the training that's in there. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have predictable, repeatable results. And I know that's what you want. It certainly is what I want for you, is to have predictable results. Before we get started, do me a favor. Help buyers remember who you are. Put your company name and your core competency into the chat. If you're watching a replay, put it into the comments. Put it in there so that buyers, me, others in the community, we all can learn your name, learn your company name, and learn what you do. Finally, I wanted to say thank you to the sustaining members of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. We are not funded by the federal government. We're not funded by large primes. We're self-funded. We're funded by sustaining members like you and me, and we're the ones who make this training possible to small businesses all across the country. And so on their behalf, I just wanted to say thank you to the sustaining members. Okay, let's get started talking about what is business development. I have this great quote, and I always forget who it is, but I think it's Ralph Waldo Emerson. But this great quote about communication, right? The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. The reason I'm saying this quote, and I want you to think about that, is because I often find we have different understandings of what things mean. For example, what business development is, and in federal sales, what that is. And so for me, and what I'm communicating with you today is, in the federal sales market, there's basically three phases. There's business development, there's capture, and there's proposal writing, proposal management, whatever you want to call it, right? And so business development is the part I want to talk about today. And fundamentally, I describe business development in having three main purposes, right? Gaining agency knowledge, building agency relationships, and that could be with the government personnel or teammates who are already in there. And then the third one is identifying agency opportunities, what I like to call slam dunk opportunities, in particular for you. So that's what I want to talk about today, is driving through those. I do want to share my screen occasionally with graphics. And so let me show this one really quick. So this graphic, the reason I'm showing it to you is because I'm going to be talking about business development all week. I'm going to talk about business development, but I want you to really just see how I see it visually. Business development is this bottom row, and you should be able to see it, but it's about developing knowledge within that agency, right? Gaining agency knowledge. And then it's about developing relationships, strategic relationships with agency personnel or with teammates. And then it's about identifying opportunities. And so I put influence strategy here because when you have the relationships, you can influence the direction the government is going, and you can identify opportunities. And then the way this natural sales process works, right? We identify opportunities. Some of those we decide to pursue, and that's capture. That's called capture. And then some of those we decide to write a proposal for. And when we do that, we're winning contracts. It's fundamentally that simple, right? It might take a little bit of work, but that's the process I just want you to track on as we go forward. So let's begin with the idea of gaining agency knowledge, right? Because this is really important to me. And in fact, to put it in perspective of how straightforward this is when you consider it being this knowledge and skills for yourself about how to do business development, right? You're gaining the knowledge of how to do business development, you're developing the skills, and you're gaining that experience, right? When you keep that in mind, then you can be inexperienced and start practicing these skills, learning how to do it, or you can be experienced and just refresh your memory. As a project manager, PMP, right? I'm a certified PMP. I used to have to do this until I stopped caring, but I used to have to sit there and get certified I'd have to take continuing education units every single year to maintain my PMP certification. But as a salesperson, Ask yourself this: are you doing professional development? Even if you've got 10 or 20 years experience as a business developer, are you stopping every year and saying, let me refresh my skills? Let me learn how to do business development from a different point of view. For example, sometimes you're just rehearing what you already know, more often than not if you're experienced. But if you're new, what I'm going to teach you today and then through the week will definitely help you become a better business developer. So let's talk about, when you think about gaining agency knowledge, this is really about becoming an expert at an agency. I say that you should know your agency better than anybody who works for that agency. And you say, oh, how could I know the Navy better than anybody who works in the Navy? Well, think about this. Imagine you're trying to go into the Navy, and I don't know how much you know about the Navy, but at a high level, they have 10 major buying commands. So these 10 huge systems commands, right? And inside of them, you're trying to develop knowledge, understand everything about them, learn what they do, their mission. You're trying to figure out who the key influencers are in there. What are they buying? How are they buying? All that kind of stuff. But imagine one person who's in the Navy who's working for NAV Supply Systems Command, right? Or NAV Sup. They're working in one part of it down in, let's say, Newport News, Virginia. They're in one area. Are they really trying to understand the whole Navy? Or are they just trying to do a great job as part of NAV Sup in one part of NAV Sup? They probably don't even know NAV Sup fully, like all the other commands within NAV Supply Command, right? But you, as a business developer, you're trying to be an expert on that agency. And it's not going to be happening even a single year. Over time, you will get really, really good at that so that you know that agency as well as 99% of the people out there. You will be in the top 1%. And the type of information you'll get when you start to learn about an agency and gain the knowledge about an agency, you're going to be learning about their accomplishments. For example, I just posted today on LinkedIn something for the Defense Healthcare Management Systems, I think from DHA, or it's a program executive office. Anyways, I put up their annual report from FY 2022. And when I look in there, I'm able to understand their accomplishments from that previous year. I'm able to see who their key leaders are, the teams that are getting things done. I'm able to see the major programs and projects they're working on. So I can learn about an agency through these annual reports, et cetera, to see their accomplishments, but also going forward, I can think about and learn about their goals, right? What are they trying to do in this current fiscal year I'm in, maybe the next fiscal year? What are their plans for the next 5 and 10 years? If you look at some of the content I put out there, sometimes these people are putting out 20-year plans because they really do have to look that far out. It's a difference in the federal market compared to anywhere else where they're looking very far out. But it's understanding their goals and the strategy, their approach to achieving those goals that they set for themselves. You understand the challenges that they're facing, right? Some challenges like in DoD are really glaringly obvious, like let's say China and Russia and the threat to the United States and cyber. Other challenges might not be so obvious, like what's the challenges to the National Forest Services and the national parks that they're supporting? What's the challenges to the healthcare going on within the military health system or VA, et cetera? So understanding those challenges that they're facing now and what they see coming down the pike. Some challenges might be some as simple as hey, the computers are all going to be outdated in 2 or 3 years, but we actually don't know what to face going forward. What type of systems? Should we even be looking at systems, or should we be looking at security around letting anybody bring their own systems in? So understanding the challenges related to what your solutions or products can help is very important. As you continue to do learning about that agency and you're developing your knowledge, you want to understand their organizational structure. I just did this. The organizational structure, the org chart, allows you to see the offices and then also the people. I have a customer who wants to be in the IRS more, and the IRS is just one component agency of Treasury. But as we went through and we built out this org chart, we're building out like hundreds of offices within IRS and really getting an understanding and plugging people's names in, understanding what this office is, or, they call them branches or divisions, things like that, right? What this office's mission and goals are. Do we want to talk to that office, or is that one not worth our time? But let's go over here. By taking the time to really understand an agency, you'll understand the depth of their organization. And none of that sits at the top website level. It's not like you can go to the website. You have to do your research, which, by the way, is the first step in the 7-step process that I teach on federal sales success, right? Begins with research, and the research is what is letting you learn about the agency. A couple other quick things about what you learn about when you're trying to develop that knowledge or gain the knowledge of an agency. You'll understand the contract vehicles they use, right? Navy uses NAVC as a big, Seaport Next Gen as a big part of how they procure products and services, right? But there's other contract vehicles they use. You need to understand that. That's part of the research. And then finally, you'll understand who's winning out there. Who are the small businesses winning out there? What are the large primes? Which are the large primes that are winning? Because if you want to get into, let's say, the Navy, just stick with them for a second. If you want to get into the Navy, then you should be developing relationships with these winners, figuring out how to build teaming partnerships with these folks, either as a subcontractor or even as you being a prime and you're looking for teammates. You might as well look for teammates who are doing business within that agency you're trying to go into. They bring their own agency knowledge, which is really important. And so that first part about business development, gaining agency knowledge, we call it agency intimacy, et cetera. It really is about being an expert on an agency. And so I want you to keep that in mind and ask yourself right now, right? And maybe throw in like, what's your one target agency into the chat? But either way, just ask yourself, am I trying to be an expert on any particular agency? Or am I trying to go out there and win contracts everywhere, right? That's the danger of going after opportunities everywhere, is you don't take the time to become an expert at an agency. And so you don't truly get to understand them, which means your proposals just aren't as strong as they could be because you don't have that understanding of their goals, their mission, their challenges, et cetera. You only gain that by gaining knowledge about an agency. Okay, so let's talk about this next phase, right, where it's about building agency relationships. I want to talk about why it's important to build agency relationships. There's a couple of different things I'm going to talk to you about, but the first thing is just how agency relationships can help you. And when I talk about agency relationships, strategic agency relationships can be with government personnel, like I mentioned, or it can be with large prime teaming partners, or people you haven't even teamed with, right? You're just building the relationship in the hope of the future. And also small business primes, right? Large and small are equally helpful to you. The only difference between them is the size of the contracts they might have. But otherwise, they're equally valuable to you because of the following reasons, right? So having strategic relationships and getting in and knowing the right people, these folks can open doors for you. They can make introductions. John can introduce you to Jane. John can tell you Jane's name. John can tell you Jane's name, give you a phone number and an email, or John can send an email and make an introduction, or John can get up, walk over to Jane and say, Jane, you really got to talk to Joe, right? I don't know why I'm all J's there, but they can open doors for you. They can open doors for you by just letting you know, are you aware of this office, right? There's this office, program executive office within our organization that you want to pursue because it sounds like it's more like what you're looking for. Opening doors for you, the right people can help do that. They can teach you about the agency, just like I mentioned there, but they can also talk to you about, for example, I have customers in the data side. They can teach you about the data strategy or the data direction. I was talking with one strategic partner within an agency about data. And in long story short, they were saying, hey, this agency has all this data, but only 20% of it is it really doing anything real with, the kind of future enterprise driven activity that they're doing with it. And the point was 80% of the data is still the old way. And that's really good for a customer like mine who wants to help them go from the old to the new way. And so I learn about some of the activity that's happening in there, but they can also teach me just about the agency. Hey, do you understand that these offices are organized this way? That's research. When you get in and build relationships with people, they can actually begin to expand upon this. They'll listen to your ideas. So if you think about programming offices, if you can get into a program office and start talking to them, they'll listen to your ideas and recommendations. Too often we're far right in the process where we're waiting for an RFP to drop and we respond. But if you shift left in the process, you're able to get in there and talk to them about their requirements or what they're even thinking about doing, right? And so if you think about just something as simple as flooring at a building, if you do construction, they might be talking about doing a building. And if you don't talk to them, they'll get all the way to the end and they'll do linoleum. But you might sit there and say, hey, you should do wood flooring. It stays just as clean. It's lower cost, overall cost over the length of the contract. Plus people just love it. It just makes people feel better. Whatever it is, right? You can introduce ideas and recommendations before those requirements are shaped. You can shape the acquisition approach. You might be trying to get them to go to women-owned small business. Getting in there early, having people you can talk to on the KO side or the small business professional side, helping them understand that not only do you want to show up, but maybe they should really consider this because there's a lot of other women-owned small businesses that can support it. If you think about industry, right? If you have the right relationships, they can invite you onto their team or they can fit you on a team. industry or government. They can let you know about opportunities, right? That's one of the fundamental things of business development, is to hear about, identify opportunities that are great for your company. And the last one, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, is they can make referrals to other people, right? When you know the right people in an agency, they can make referrals. And I get this all the time. This is how you do outreach and how you move from one person to the other. You're only going to find like, let's say 5 or 10% of the people on the internet where their names, numbers, and emails are there. And at some point you have to get introductions from Jane to John and John to Sally, for example, right? And these people, as you build the strategic relationships, they're going to guide you down that path, and they'll want to help you. So it's really important to think about building those relationships, right? You can put relationships in the chat if you're following, but more importantly, I just want you to ask yourself, right? Am I building strategic relationships in an agency? So before I said, are you targeting and really trying to become an expert, but are you trying to build relationships, or are you just reacting to opportunities and the relationships are all just related only to an opportunity? There's a difference there. The opportunity is one thing and it's done. You win or lose it. A relationship that is related to an agency you're going after, whether it's government or industry, these are long-term strategic relationships that you can help them and they can help you. And so this is really good. I wanted to give you a couple of quick tips. I'm blowing through a lot of stuff here, but a couple of quick tips, about 6, 7 tips on how to start building relationships. Some things to keep in mind about how to start building relationships. And by the way, I have all sorts of other training that you can find that is outside even the masterclass that I talked about. You can find it where I really break down step-by-step how to do this. But the first thing on building strategic relationships, how to start building strategic relationships at an agency in particular, is pick one agency. This is a big thing I believe in, is that you have to have a primary target agency. Just because you have a primary target agency, let's say the Navy, doesn't mean you can't work with the Army or DHS. It just means the Navy is the one you're going to become an expert at. If somebody invites you over to the Army, it's like, sure, I'll take a contract there, but I'm not getting distracted. My energy for business development, really becoming an agency expert, is one agency. One of the challenges we small businesses in particular have, and I think actually larges might have a challenge with this, because people just have a challenge of picking up the phone, right? We have a challenge picking up the phone. And so, you've got to keep in mind, you will not develop relationships unless somehow you reach out. We call this outreach in our 7-step process, and I'll show you the diagram in a minute. But in the 7-step process, it's research about learning about the agency, targeting, finding the right people, and then outreach is picking up the phone. And so you have to do that. But if you don't pick up the phone, and if you can't pick up the phone, then you can't have relationships, because you can't have relationships unless you're willing to say hello to somebody. Makes sense? If you don't sit there and say hi, then how's the conversation even going to begin? People buy from those they know, like, and trust you. I haven't even got to the like and trust part. At the moment, I'm just saying, do they even know you, right? How comfortable are you right now picking up the phone and calling people? And if you're not comfortable, why not? Like, what's holding you back? Worried they're going to shoot you or slam the phone down or yell at you or something, or make you feel like a dummy or something. None of that really is going to happen. All of it is a legitimate anxiety. We all kind of feel different anxieties, but the only way you can get past that is picking up the phone. Pick up the phone 100 times, pick it up 1,000 times, and you will begin to see that the odds are in your favor, that more often than not, when you call somebody, the worst thing that happens is they don't answer and they never get back to you. The best thing that happens is that you leave a voicemail and they call you back, right? So you got to pick up the phone so they know who you are. Then they can like and trust you. We call this activity, by the way, marketing engagements or touches. And you need at least 20 touches, 20 engagements before they even begin to remember you and know of you, right? Not know you truly, but know of you even. They need to see you 20 times. And so that could be on LinkedIn, that could be emails, that could be phone calls, that could be meeting them, that could be matchmaking at an event that an agency hosts. Whatever it is, it's 20 touches. For us in the GovCon Chamber, we actually call it a 7-hour rule. We feel like you need to be engaged with me 7 hours and me in the chamber for 7 hours of our content one way or another before you truly begin to know, like, and trust me, which then like, and trust the GovCon Chamber, right? And so you want to think that same way with your customers. What are you doing right now to help your customers or the people you want to build relationships with? What are you doing to help them know you, to like you, and to trust you? Today, I'm just talking about knowing you. Later, it can be like and trust. The last thing I want to talk about is just one of the activities you got to do to build strong relationships is that targeting I mentioned a minute ago. So build a list of people to call. And I said this list should be 100 to 200 people. And you should have a running list of 1 to 200 people until you have so many relationships you don't need anymore. You're happy to have somebody call you, but you no longer need to do outreach because you got the relationships you need. And you can watch another training where I talk about how many that is. But the type of people you want to reach out to, right? There's federal agency points of contact. So anybody on the small business professional side, the acquisition side, or the program office side. You want to reach out to SBA point of contacts, in particular, the PCR, right? If you don't know who the PCR are, it's a procurement center representative, go figure out who they are, because they're somebody who could help you as you're trying to get into an agency. And those PCRs are responsible for particular agencies. You want to have points of contact from large prime businesses and points of contact from small businesses. And when you look at small businesses, you really want to make a point of finding women-owned small business points of contact to add to your list. SDVOs, HubZone, and 8A, right? You want it across all 4 programs. This allows you to access any set-asides that might be at your target agency. So as you're building relationships and you're thinking 6, 12, 24 months out in the future, having these relationships in place, maybe even giving first, is going to be really valuable. Think of these people, especially on industry, right, as competitors. Some days you're competing, and some days you are teaming. So let me just share 2 quick slides, images here. And these go to what I was talking about. And if you want any of these, just let me know, and I'll be happy to send it to you. So let me share this. Okay, so this first one I'm sharing is the 7-step process I've been talking about. Very quickly, the 7-step process, when you try to get into an agency and you're doing business development, in particular through to sales, begins with understanding the agency, finding the right people for targeting, starting to call them, pick up the phone. That's where you build the relationships, right? These strategic relationships are how you identify slam dunk opportunities that you can write winning proposals and start winning, sales. And so that all begins with this business development activity of research, targeting, and outreach, starting the development activity. This next slide, I didn't mean to animate it. Let me move forward because animation takes too long. Come on. Okay, I think that was all the animation. But the whole point was I was just trying to show you, if you think about RFP phase, this is when it drops in SAM, right underneath the word week. You want to shift left in the process. And when you do business development, you're able to help your company shift left into the RFI stage, or before the RFI drops, or right at the idea stage when somebody is thinking about an idea, or perhaps you could be the one putting the idea into their head because your company has special products or services that they should really consider. And so that's an important part to be tracking on that activity. Okay, so if you take the time to develop your skills as a business developer, you're going to find it's easier to start and build strategic relationships. These are going to help you succeed as a government contractor. And the one tip I have for you is download that 7-step process that I just laid out, print it out, put it on your wall, and every day look at that 7-step process and go, am I following this process? What am I doing today? And does it align to one of those 7-step processes? If it doesn't, why am I doing it, right? And so it's really important to have some process, and that process is an easy one that I love, that I hope you will find value in and print it, put it on your wall. So if you did find value in today's training, do me a favor, become a GovCon Chamber of Commerce sustaining member and help me make this available to everybody else. Help others benefit from all of this content through your support. And if your company is struggling to start and build relationships with federal buyers, consider my 90-day BD Accelerator workshop. You can send me a message in LinkedIn if you want to learn more, but it's fundamentally for companies that are already getting some traction and you want to go to the next level. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.